Shelley slipped the silver number candle into her coat pocket before anyone noticed it was missing. The cake had already been cut. The photographs were finished. Around the long restaurant table, her friends were still laughing about how 40 no longer sounded old now that one of them had reached it. Shelley smiled when someone looked her way. "I'm just going to get some air." Her coat was already buttoned. In the corridor, the birthday woman caught up with her and touched her arm. "You're leaving?" "I have an early morning." It was Saturday. They both knew Shelley had nowhere she needed to be, but her friend only nodded. "Of course. I'm glad you came." There had been a time when she would have asked Shelley to stay. She might have offered another drink, another chair closer to the conversation, another reason not to disappear. Tonight, she stepped aside. Shelley walked past the elevator and took the stairs down 4 floors. At each landing, she slowed beneath the painted number, as though the building were quietly counting something she had forgotten to finish. By the time she reached the street, she could no longer remember the flavor of the cake, but she remembered everything else. One friend had bought a house near the coast. Another had shown photographs of her son's first day at school. Someone had accepted a position overseas. Someone else had complained about wedding venues with the tired confidence of a person whose life was moving exactly where everyone expected it to go. Whenever the conversation turned toward Shelley, she offered the same small answer. Work is busy. She coordinated adult education programs at a community college. She could organize 12 instructors, 3 buildings, and hundreds of students without missing a deadline. But when someone asked what she was looking forward to, she reached for her water before answering. "Nothing special," she said it lightly. That was the part no one challenged anymore. At home, Shelley placed her keys in the ceramic dish by the door and stood in the dark without removing her coat. The apartment was silent, orderly, and exactly as she had left it. She reached into her pocket. The silver candle had bent near the base. She tried to straighten it between her fingers, pressing carefully until the wax began to split. A thin crack appeared along the number, too small to notice unless someone was looking for damage. Shelley stopped. She did not know why she had taken it. She only knew that during the party, while everyone spoke about the years ahead, she had felt nothing until the candle disappeared into her hand. Now, alone in the quiet apartment, she understood that she had not left because the evening was painful. She had left because everyone else's life seemed to be moving forward, and she could no longer tell whether hers had stopped, or whether she had simply been measuring it against a clock that had never belonged to her. The thought did not comfort her. Shelley placed the candle on the kitchen table and turned on the light. The silver surface caught the glare above it. The crack was barely visible now, but she knew where to look. She pressed the candle flat beneath a ceramic coaster, as if a few hours of weight might return it to its original shape. Then she opened her laptop. At work, Shelley built schedules for people who had missed years of school, changed countries, raised children, lost jobs, or returned to classrooms after believing their chance had passed. She knew how to take uncertainty and divide it into manageable steps. Enrollment date, placement test, first class, midterm review, completion. That night, she opened a blank spreadsheet and gave her own life the same treatment. Housing, career, relationship, travel, savings. She stared at the empty cells until their whiteness felt accusing. Under housing, she typed, purchase before 40. Under career, apply for senior position this year. Under relationship, she hesitated before writing, be more intentional. The phrase sounded mature enough to hide the fact that she did not know what it meant. For the next 2 hours, Shelley searched apartment listings, promotion requirements, and weekend events for single professionals. She saved links without reading them carefully. She added deadlines beside each one. By midnight, the spreadsheet was full. For the first time since leaving the restaurant, she felt something close to relief. Not happiness, relief. The kind that comes when fear has been given columns. On Sunday morning, her friend sent a message. "Did you get home all right?" Shelley replied immediately. "Yes, lovely evening. Sorry I left early." 3 dots appeared, vanished, then appeared again. "You don't have to apologize. I just thought something felt off." Shelley looked at the silver candle beneath the coaster. Just tired. Work has been a lot. Her friend sent a small heart and did not ask again. Shelley told herself this was kindness. She had protected the evening from becoming about her. She had prevented an unnecessary conversation. She had kept her private discomfort from spilling into someone else's celebration. That explanation worked until Monday afternoon, when she caught herself opening the spreadsheet between student registration reports. She added the price of a condominium she had not visited. Then she moved the deadline for purchasing one 3 months earlier. The act was so small that no one around her noticed. But the rest of the week began arranging itself around it. She skipped lunch to speak with a mortgage advisor. She volunteered for 2 extra evening programs because the additional responsibility might strengthen her application for the senior role. She agreed to attend a property viewing on the morning she usually spent reviewing lesson plans with instructors over coffee. For years, structure had served her well. It had helped Shelley become the person others trusted when funding changed, rooms became unavailable, or a teacher called in sick an hour before class. She could look at a crowded week and find an opening no one else had seen. Planning had given her dignity. It had also given her somewhere to stand whenever life refused to explain itself. So when uneasiness returned, she did not question the plan. She made it more detailed. At the first property viewing, Shelley arrived 12 minutes early. The condominium was on the 7th floor of a new building near the highway. It had pale floors, narrow windows, and a kitchen designed to look unused. The realtor spoke about resale value and future development in the area. Shelley walked from room to room, imagining where furniture should go. She did not imagine herself there. When the realtor asked what she thought, Shelley ran her hand along the kitchen counter. "It seems practical." "Practical is good," Shelley nodded. The second condominium had more light but was beyond the limit she had entered in the spreadsheet. The third was smaller than the photograph suggested. The fourth had a balcony facing another building so closely that she could see a stranger's drying shirts moving behind the opposite glass. Still, she requested the documents for all 4. That evening, her friend invited her to the small Sunday cafe they had visited for years. Shelley began typing that she would be there. Then the mortgage advisor called. By the time the conversation ended, the cafe would be closing. "Can we do next week?" Shelley wrote. "I'm finally getting serious about a few things," her friend replied after several minutes. Of course. The following Sunday, there was no invitation, Shelley noticed. She also noticed that the absence hurt less than she expected. That frightened her more. Numbness had once seemed like evidence that she was handling life well. She did not collapse after difficult conversations. She did not complain when plans changed. She did not ask others to reassure her. But now the quiet inside her was spreading beyond pain. It had begun reaching the things she wanted to care about. At work, an instructor brought Shelley a handwritten note from a student who had completed his first full paragraph in English. In previous years, she would have read it twice and kept it in the upper drawer of her desk. That afternoon, she thanked the instructor, placed the note beside her keyboard, and returned to calculating how much a larger mortgage would delay retirement contributions. The note remained there until the cleaner moved it beneath a stack of forms. Shelley found it 2 days later with a coffee ring across the bottom. She looked at the blurred ink for a long moment. Then she threw it away. The first partial answer came quietly. Shelley had not taken the candle because she wanted her friend's life. She had taken it because the number on the cake had made life look measurable. 40. A clean mark. A place where a person could be evaluated. Her friend had arrived there with photographs, property, family stories, and people who could describe the shape of her life without hesitation. Shelley had arrived at the same table with no simple evidence. Work is busy. Nothing special. The candle had not represented age. It had represented a verdict. After that recognition, she might have stopped. Instead, she became more determined to change the verdict. She selected the second condominium, the one beyond the limit she had originally set. The realtor advised her to move quickly. Another buyer had expressed interest. Shelley studied the photographs again. The living room was bright. The building was respectable. The purchase would look sensible when she explained it. She submitted an offer. The next morning, her friend called while Shelley was walking between classrooms. "I heard you're buying a place," Shelley slowed. "Who told you? You mentioned it in the group chat." I said I was looking. "You also sent the listing." Shelley had forgotten. Her friend waited. Shelley could hear students talking behind a nearby door. "It's a good investment," she said. "Do you like it?" The question seemed strangely incomplete. "It's in a developing area." "That isn't what I asked." Shelley shifted the folders against her chest. "The market isn't going to wait for me to feel inspired." Her friend was quiet. Shelley recognized the silence from the restaurant corridor. It was the same careful pause that came before someone decided which truth could be safely spoken. Finally, her friend said, "You sound as if you're being chased." "I'm being realistic." "About what?" Shelley looked at the clock above the classroom door. The second hand moved with a faint mechanical click. "I have a meeting." "All right, I'll call you later." But later, Shelley sent a message instead. "Sorry. Long day." Her friend responded with a thumbs up. It was the first time Shelley could remember receiving that symbol from her. Nothing openly cruel had happened. No argument had taken place. Yet something warm had become procedural. Human beings sometimes borrow a clock because uncertainty feels harder to bear than lateness. Once that clock is accepted, ordinary life begins to resemble a series of missed appointments. A home becomes overdue. Love becomes delayed. Rest becomes irresponsible. Even joy must prove that it is leading somewhere. The suffering does not come only from having less than others. It comes from losing the ability to recognize a life that does not arrive in the expected order. 2 days later, the seller rejected Shelley's offer. She felt a rush of disappointment so sharp that she had to sit down. The feeling surprised her. She had not loved the condominium. She could barely remember the view from its windows. Still, she increased the offer. The realtor warned her that the monthly payment would be uncomfortable. "I can adjust," Shelley said. She accepted another evening program at the college before the seller had responded. The program would run on Thursdays, the night she and her friend had once reserved for dinner whenever their schedules allowed. Shelley told herself they had both become busy. The seller accepted her second offer. The realtor called with excitement. Shelley stood beside the copier while pages slid into the tray. "Congratulations," the realtor said. "You got it." Shelley waited for the pleasure to arrive. It did not. She watched the green light move across the copier glass. "When is the deposit due?" "Monday afternoon." Shelley wrote the time down. That evening, she placed the purchase agreement on the kitchen table. The silver candle still lay beneath the coaster. When she lifted the coaster, The wax had not straightened. The pressure had only flattened one side and widened the crack. Shelley turned it in her fingers. For several seconds, she saw the similarity without allowing herself to understand it. Then she placed the candle on top of the contract and went to bed. She did not sleep well. On Saturday, her friend held a small lunch at home for relatives who had not attended the restaurant gathering. Shelley knew about it only because she saw a photograph in the group chat. A familiar cake sat in the center of the table. This one had no number candle. Shelley enlarged the photograph. Her friend was laughing at something outside the frame. The expression was unguarded, different from the careful smile she had worn in Shelley's last few messages. Shelley typed, "Looks lovely." Her friend thanked her. Nothing more followed. The distance between them had not begun at the birthday party. Shelley could see that now. For months, perhaps longer, her friend had been offering parts of her life cautiously. A problem with her son had been described only after it was resolved. A disagreement at home had been reduced to a passing comment. Plans that once arrived while still uncertain were now shared only after decisions had been made. Shelley had assumed this meant her friend's life was becoming fuller and had less room for her. But another explanation had been waiting inside all those careful conversations. Shelley had begun turning every unfinished thing into a schedule. When her friend wondered aloud whether to change jobs, Shelley sent application deadlines. When she admitted feeling lost after moving to the coast, Shelley calculated travel times and recommended local groups. When she said she did not know what she wanted from the next decade, Shelley told her she was fortunate to have options. None of Shelley's responses were unkind. Most were useful, but usefulness had slowly replaced presence. Her friend had stopped bringing her questions that did not need answers. The reversal did not arrive as blame. It arrived as embarrassment. Shelley had believed she was the one being left behind. She had not noticed how often she abandoned a moment the instant it failed to provide direction. She called her friend. The call rang 5 times before being answered. "Is everything okay?" her friend asked. Shelley almost said yes. Instead, she looked at the silver candle resting on the contract. "I saw the lunch photographs." There was a pause. "I didn't think you'd want to come. You've been busy. I would have come. You left the first party early. I told you I was tired." "I know." The gentleness in her friend's voice made Shelley defensive. "So you decided for me?" "No. I stopped asking you to keep choosing between me and whatever you think you should be doing next." Shelley stood so quickly that the chair scraped the floor. "That isn't fair." Her friend did not argue. That made the words feel heavier. "I'm trying to get my life together," Shelley said. "I know. You say that as if it's something shameful." "I don't think it's shameful." "Then what are you saying?" Her friend took a breath. "I miss you before everything became evidence." Shelley said nothing. "I miss telling you something without feeling that it has to become a decision. That's not what I do." Her friend was silent long enough for Shelley to hear her own breathing. Then she said, "All right." The conversation ended soon after. Shelley spent the rest of the afternoon trying to prove the sentence wrong. She reviewed old messages. She found advice she had offered, appointments she had recommended, links she had sent, plans she had improved. Evidence of care. Evidence of loyalty. Evidence that she had been present. But beneath nearly every exchange, there was a question Shelley had not allowed to remain open. What will you do? What happens next? When will you decide? She had been asking those questions of everyone because she could not tolerate hearing them inside herself. By evening, the purchase agreement remained unsigned. Shelley told herself the hesitation came from the financial risk. She recalculated the monthly payment. She removed travel from the spreadsheet. Then dining out. then the small amount she donated to the Adult Literacy Fund each year. The figures finally worked. The life around them did not. On Monday morning, the college director offered Shelley the senior position she had planned to pursue. There would be more pay, a larger office, and less direct involvement with students. The role required an answer by the end of the week. "This is what you've been working toward," the director said. Shelley looked through the glass wall at a classroom where an instructor was helping two students sound out a sentence. She had written the promotion into her spreadsheet. She had placed a deadline beside it. Now that it was being offered, she felt the same silence that had followed the condominium acceptance. "Can I think about it?" The director seemed surprised. "Of course." At lunchtime, the realtor called. The deposit had to be transferred before 5. Another buyer was prepared to move forward if Shelley delayed. At 3:45, Shelley sat alone in her office with the banking page open on her computer. The contract lay to her left. The promotion letter lay to her right. Between them rested the silver candle. Her phone lit up with a message from her friend. No apology. No explanation. Only a photograph of 2 cups on the table at their old cafe. "I'm here until 5. Shelley read the message twice. Then she looked at the transfer form. The account number was entered. The amount was entered. Everything required to secure the life she had decided should be hers was ready. All she had to do was press confirm. For several minutes, Shelley did not move. The clock above the office door continued marking time. The silver candle leaned slightly toward the unsigned contract, its cracked side turned upward. At 4:12, Shelley placed one hand on the mouse. With the other, she picked up the candle. The old reaction was still available to her. So was the life that might begin if she stopped treating every unfinished part of herself as something already late. Shelley's finger rested above the mouse. The transfer page waited without judgment. She could still complete it, arrive at the cafe a few minutes before 5, and tell herself she had protected both possibilities. But she knew what would happen. She would sit across from her friend while calculating payments in her head. She would listen only long enough to decide what the conversation meant. Another hour would become evidence for a life already chosen. Shelley moved the cursor away from confirm. Then she closed the page. The relief did not come. Her stomach tightened as though she had missed something important. Perhaps she had. The condominium might be sold before she reached the street. The senior position still required an answer. Nothing had become clearer. She placed the cracked candle in her coat pocket and left the office. At the cafe, her friend was still sitting beside the window. One cup was empty. The second had gone cold. Shelley took the chair across from her. "I didn't send the deposit," she said. Her friend did not congratulate her. "Did you decide you don't want it?" Shelley looked down at her hands. "I don't know." The words felt smaller than an answer, but more honest than any plan she had made that week. She reached into her pocket and placed the silver candle between the 2 cups. "I took this from your cake." Her friend examined the bent number and the crack running through its side. "I wondered where it went. I tried to straighten it." "I can see that." For a moment, neither of them spoke. At 5, Shelley's phone lit up with the realtor's name. She watched it ring. The old urgency rose quickly, offering one last chance to become the person the spreadsheet had promised. Shelley turned the phone face down. Her friend pushed the cold cup toward her, then called the server and asked for 2 fresh coffees. Nothing in Shelley's life had been solved, but the deadline passed without taking her life with it. The cracked candle remained between them.